it's been about a week since my last video, but there have been like two very cool new developments. So first of all, I ordered on eBay this new firmware. This is like a 2.15. This is actually was made recently by this company called Tontec, who kind of sort of like reworked out the firmware for the Matrix-6 with some cool new updates. So I installed a new firmware chip and I tested it in the working Matrix-6 and it does work. So this board is great. Now the other amazing development that happened is that I received last night a package from Ukraine out of all places, and the package contained the transformer that I was missing. So this was a biggie because this guy is kind of difficult to get your hands on. And thankfully this gentleman in Ukraine had a spare one that he was willing to part with, and he shipped it out to me. And once again, I tested all the voltages coming out of the transformer, going through, the circuit, and all the voltages check out. So this guy is a huge boost to getting me closer to bringing this keyboard back into full working state. All right, so with the transformer and the new firmware in my unit, now all I need to do is just to kind of finish working on this voice board, and then I should be ready to put everything back together, fire it up, and see what happens, and see if I can get this Matrix-6 to actually power up and at least give me something. So I don't know if you can kind of see, I did repair the stuff on the left side. All of this checks out. I checked out all the traces with the continuity, and everything should be working on there. Now on this side, on the right side, I did replace this voltage regulator that, I don't know, they had put like a much larger one that I thought was kind of like out of spec with what is supposed to be in there in the first place. I replaced the sockets, like this socket, and this socket, and just kind of cleaned everything out and double checked and triple checked the connections. So hopefully if those chips are not damaged, that should kind of do the trick on those. Rather, when I was working and triple checking everything here, I spotted a couple of weird things. There's this resistor here and this resistor here. And whatever had been installed in here by whoever was not up to spec, especially this guy. I think this guy was like a little bit off. Actually, I think they're both supposed to be like 10K resistors. I think that they were both like 100K resistors. Honestly, I don't really understand how that might have happened. I think it might have had something to do with maybe they had a really bad copy of the service manual and they misread the values. So I replaced those two resistors to match the actual 10K values that they're supposed to be. Other than that, I did spot, I don't know, this is going to be like really difficult to see, but basically if you look very carefully at this socket, it's actually cracked right here. It's literally split open. So what I'm probably gonna have to do is like carefully desolder this and then put like a new, this is like a 20-pin socket. Thankfully I have a spare one. This guy looks a little bit rough too, but I'm gonna test it because if I don't have to replace it, I would prefer not to desolder and put in like a brand new socket if I don't have to. I put the new chips back in here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Double checked, triple checked everything. The 3 voices, obviously 3 are missing. Reconnected everything. We got the replacement transformer, power supply. I double checked all the voltages. Everything is coming out correctly. We know this guy works. We don't know if this guy works yet. We know that guy works. We know this guy works. We know this guy works. So now it's the moment of truth. We just need to fire it up for the first time. This is the first time that I have everything assembled together, and see if this thing will even turn on. So without further ado, I'm just gonna keep the camera on here while I flick this thing on. Shit. Usually like a little recalibration thing pops up here, but damn it. All right, back to the drawing board. to the drawing board. Okay, so something insane. Okay, so something insane happened, which kind of makes me all sorts of upset. But anyway, what I did next, since this thing is not working, is I removed it from here and I put it into the working Matrix-6 that I have from my friend Mike. However, as I was installing it in there, I realized something crazy. So this, I don't know if you can see this, this guy, this bus, that I guess like it's a data bus, is actually upside down. I mean, okay, like I'll get to this other notch here, but like the real notch is here. However, if you look at the board, you probably can't really see it, but there's like a little thing. This notch is supposed to be down. So basically I was like kind of twisting this upside down to get it to fit, which seemed weird in the first place. But when I compared it to the other Matrix-6, then I realized that this damn thing had been soldered in backwards, like upside down. So what I did next is I removed the board, I desoldered all the all the pins on the back, and I was starting to like kind of lift it, and it was just impossible. This thing was not gonna come out, and the only way to get this guy out from this circuit board would be to literally just kind of rip it out, cut off the legs from the bottom, and just kind of hope for the best, which was not a great idea. So then I thought, well, what if I just cut out a little notch in the plastic? And that's exactly what I did here, if this thing will focus. I just cut out, here, let me get a little bit more light here. I just cut out like another plastic notch so that I could actually kind of plug the cable in the proper way with this little notch down and not up. And I thought, well, duh, like, I mean, that should do the trick, because, I mean, for all intents and purposes, all the pins work exactly the same way. It's just a matter of, like, just kind of flipping this guy upside down and just cutting out, like, this new notch on this side should do it. Now, here's the thing. Like, I mean, thankfully, this ribbon cable, as far as I know, is not carrying power. Because if it was carrying power and this thing had been put in upside down, like flipped, then it would basically fry the entire circuit board. Everything here would just be like kind of just fried. Because it carries data, because the power is really coming from these guys, I'm kind of hoping that nothing was really damaged here. So the only way to to figure out if my fix worked is to like just plug this guy in the proper way, okay? With, as I said, with the little notch pointing downward, not up. I mean, I don't know how this happens. I don't know who the hell owned this keyboard before this, so I don't know why they would take this and flip it upside down. I just don't understand how this thing could have gotten flipped, but it did get flipped. So without further ado, let's kind of plug this guy back in and see what happens now that I flipped the ribbon cable. So once again, here goes nothing. Oh my God, look at that. Look at that. I'm gonna turn it off and back on. It's working. Oh my God, this is huge. Can I change presets? I sure can. Huh. Look at all that stuff. Wow. This is crazy. All right, so the next thing I need to do is figure out if it makes any sound. So let's see. I'm gonna press the keys and you'll see like dots, and dots correspond to the voices. I mean, obviously, 3 of the voices are not working. Let's see. Based on this, it would appear that 2 voices are working, not 3. So there's no 3 chips. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to put in the CEM 3396s from the working Matrix-6 just to see if it's the CEM chips or if it's something else. that is causing these voices not to work. I'm kind of keeping my fingers crossed that it's something else, because the CM3396 are kind of expensive to replace. Okay, so after a lot of testing, I figured that one of the CM chips, this guy in particular, is not working. All of the other chips are working, because I mean, I had installed other CM chips in all the slots. Everything works. So I get like full 6 voices when there's like, 6 CM chips that are actually working. This guy, unfortunately, appears to be fried. So this board works. Everything works. I mean, when I put all 6 chips in there, it works as exactly the way it's supposed to. I have the new firmware in here. This board works great. Like the pitch bend wheel, the mod wheel, everything is fantastic. So what I need to do now is order not 3, but actually 4 of these CM chips, which kind of stinks because these guys are pricey. I mean, they run about $40 a piece online, and I was kind of hoping that I would only need to replace 3 of them, but instead it looks like I'm gonna have to replace 4 of them. So in the meantime, while I am waiting for the voice chips to arrive, I can get started on another little maintenance quality of life project here, and that is to fix some of these buttons, because I turn it on, see, some of them are not really greatly working. I mean, if you press them really hard, they'll start working, but they are a little problematic, All right, so here is the controller board. So this would be underneath the membrane. Here's the display, of course, and here's all the buttons. So the first thing I need to do is like remove these circular caps, and you gotta be really careful because I already snapped one of the little legs off. I don't know if you can kind of see this. It's supposed to be like this normally, but I managed to pull it a little too fast. So I just want to be like extra careful and maybe just kind of slowly kind of try to unwind them very, very carefully and slowly until hopefully they come off in one piece, like this guy. Now, as I mentioned before, I mean, I have, here, let me see here. So these are like the good Omron blue buttons, and I like to use those on the Korg because they don't wobble around and they're very, very solid. However, for this board, because the fact that these buttons are never actually seen, you just kind of touch the membrane on top of it and then this kind of pushes it down. I think these cheaper buttons, these cheaper switches, I should say, I think that's gonna do just fine for what I need to do here. Now, there is a bit of a boogaboo here happening, and that is this little nipple thing, whatever you want to call this little guy that inserts into the hole here. So the hole on these guys is a little bit, I mean, obviously you're just gonna have to take my word for it, but basically it's a little wider than the ones that Oberheim used. So I mean, it should still be all right. It's just that I can't really get this guy to sit in. As you can kind of see, it just kind of sort of wants to fall off. Once this guy is back into the keyboard and the membrane is on top of it, then I don't have to worry about these guys like popping off. But I know that if I don't do something when I then kind of flip the board vertical to go and screw it back in, they're all gonna fall out and it's just gonna be a mess. All right, so guess what came in? The 4CM3396 voices that I was missing, because only 2 of them were working after all. So for the first time ever, this Matrix-6 should be fully complete. And let's fire it up. And it comes on, that's a great sign. And now the test is to see if we can actually play some music, if we can hear more than a couple of voices at the same time. So I'm gonna do my little trick where I hold my headphones next to the camera and start playing, and let's see what happens. Oh yeah. Hear that beautiful polyphony. Here we are. So the Oberheim Matrix-6 once again brought back to its full glory. So the only thing that I need to do now is just kind of work on a couple little aesthetic things. I want to clean up the keyboard. I want to clean up the pitch bend wheels. So I'm just going to kind of open it up and just kind of take a look a little bit. I might do some polish on the keys because I really like how that worked out with the DW6000. They just kind of feel so much nicer once they're polished. So I might be doing that depending on how easy it is to pop the keys off, because I don't want to risk accidentally breaking some off. All right, so there were just 4 screws on the bottom of the case holding this guy in place, and I carefully lift it and flip it just to kind of take a look. It looks like in pretty decent shape. I think I'm just gonna just kind of spray a little bit of contact cleaner in between, and maybe just kind of re-grease a little bit like these points. Maybe just kind of with a Q-tip, just kind of clean up a couple things and spray a little bit of contact cleaner. And then I think that's all I need to do with this pitch bend mod wheel assembly right here. All right, so I think I got the keyboard removed. I mean, basically there's 4 sets of screws towards the front, like on the underside, and then there's like 1 and 2 larger screws, and then you just gotta be careful to unplug this guy that connects to the pressure, like the aftertouch, and then this ribbon here which connects to the main keyboard. So you know, once both of those guys are fully disconnected, then you can kind of like pull the whole thing open. Just be very, very careful because you don't want to damage any of the cables or any of the connections. All right, so the interesting thing about the Oberheim Matrix-6 is that actually like the aftertouch pressure board and the keyboard itself are like 2 separate parts. So this guy actually kind of like is bolted underneath the keyboard proper, but they are like indeed separate components. These little white extrusions on the keys, and these guys are actually what pushes down on the pressure sensitivity to give you the aftertouch. It would appear that removing the keys is as simple as pushing them back and then gently kind of sliding them off of the assembly without breaking anything, hopefully. But I mean, it appears that it should be fairly doable. So I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm gonna try to remove all the keys so I can kind of clean and polish them properly. Interestingly enough, they have like a very, very similar mechanism to the Korg DW8000 keyboard. They have like this kind of interesting kind of spring that kind of fits in here, and that's what causes the key once it's in place. I don't know if you can see it, but that spring is what causes the key to rebound once it's properly in place. Underneath you can kind of see, so this would be like the on-off switch, but I don't think I need to worry about these guys. All the keys work, so I'm just gonna like carefully remove each and every key. I have to like start from the white ones first and then the black ones. It's kind of a pain, but I think it's totally worth it. I'm just numbering them so I can put them exactly. I have like a black marker and a silver marker for the black keys. So I'm just gonna number like the white keys 1 through whatever, and same thing with the black keys 1 to whatever, and that way I know how to they go back together. Now here's an interesting thing. So these keys are not weighted. I mean, they feel nice, and the keyboard certainly feels nice. But there's part of me that's kind of wondering, wonder if I should put the weights that I have, the automotive weights. I mean, these guys fit really nicely underneath. Maybe like this way I would have to put them. They're a little bit more narrow. But yeah, I mean, if I wanted to, I could kind of add some weights if I wanted to give the keyboard a little bit more of this kind of solid feel. I'll think about it, maybe like do some research online and see. All right, so all the keys are polished. I'm just putting them back. After much deliberation, I decided to go ahead and put the weights in because, I don't know, I think it's gonna feel nicer once the weights are in. I'm just gonna put on the black keys like inside. I don't know if you can see in here. I'm just gonna put them in here. Hopefully you can see if I can get this thing to focus. Focus. Hello. So that's where the weights are going for the black keys, and then for the white keys, I've decided I'm just gonna, once again, just like the Korg, I'm just gonna put them on the underside here, and it's gonna be nice. I think it's gonna help with the feel of the keyboard, and I don't think it's gonna affect the responsiveness of the aftertouch or the velocity or anything like that. So yeah, I'm just putting the keys back in. I polished them. I took a while. I mean, you can watch my video on the Korg DW6000 for how I did it, but basically I got one of those guys that I attach to my power drill, and then get like a little bit of polishing compound on it, and just kind of get them polished. I mean, it's a bit of a pain to do on all 61 keys, but as I said, I think it's going to be worth it, and it just kind of feels really nice and smooth, and it also kind of gave me the opportunity to kind of fix a couple little dents and dings that I noticed on some of the keys. Oh my god, that was a royal pain in the butt for sure. Just trying to get like these little springs, especially on the white keys. I mean, it was almost impossible. It might have been easier if I popped the board on the back off, but that's also pain. So I think with that done, I think I'm ready to put this guy back in the actual keyboard. All right, so putting the keyboard back into the Matrix-6 is a bit of a brain twister, honestly. I was not expecting this. So let me see here. Let me try to explain it without breaking anything. Hopefully you guys can kind of see here. Let me kind of turn it right side up. Okay, so there are basically two sets of screws. The top ones, or the one that are closer to the front, are actually screwing in the aftertouch board, which is like a separate piece that you've seen from the other video, while the one that's towards the rear is actually screwing in the keyboard, securing the keyboard. In addition, there are like two other bolts on the back that you probably can't see on that side that are also securing the keyboard. So the trick, because there's really like, I was trying to figure this out. So basically the trick was like to first screw in the aftertouch board to the front screws, but not fully, because the keyboard has to fit underneath it. It has to actually kind of slide underneath the board, and so you can't really do that if the screws are tight. So what you need to do is like kind of put in like the aftertouch board, screw it in lightly, keep it so that it will still be able to kind of lift up, and then carefully slide the rest of the keyboard underneath, kind of being careful not to kind of bump against like the the transformer and the circuit boards. So this was tricky. This is not a simple way of reassembling this keyboard. I mean, I was not prepared for this much of a challenge in putting this guy back together. I think it's back together, so now I need to see if it all works, switch it on, and make sure that all the keys are working and I didn't screw anything up. And of course, like, you know, I want to make sure that I reconnect the aftertouch that goes over here and the main keyboard that goes on this guy right here. All right, so all the keys work, and the aftertouch, I don't know if you can hear, but the aftertouch is working. So adding the weights, I don't think really messed up with the responsiveness of the keyboard. Well, the keys work, everything appears to be working. Do the weights make any difference? Now, thankfully, I still have Mike's keyboard here. This is, I'm actually returning it to him tomorrow. But so this is his Oberheim Matrix-6, and of course this is mine. And so it kind of gives me like a good opportunity to be able to kind of like play both and kind of like feel a little bit like the difference between the two keyboards. And yeah, I mean, you know, this is obviously like something that's a little subjective, but I think the weights make a difference. I mean, you know, this keyboard doesn't have the weights and this one does. And I mean, obviously you can't tell from the video, but to me, this keyboard just kind of feels a little bit more solid. And I don't know, there's just something about it that kind of feels nicer to play on versus this guy that is definitely a little more plasticky. Now, there's nothing wrong with this keyboard. I mean, obviously, like Oberheim thought that this keyboard was just fine, and this is the way that the keyboard was released to the public. And it feels nice, and it's nice and responsive, but I gotta say that adding the weights really just kind of elevates this a little bit. I mean, it's subtle. I mean, you know, I'm not gonna say that it's like, oh my God, like night and day. And as I said, it's very subjective. But to me, this keyboard now with the weights just simply feels just a little bit nicer. I'm kind of like a little bit hesitant almost to declare this keyboard completely fixed. I mean, basically, you know, we polished the keys, so that's great. I mean, once again, like to just kind of go back to all of the stuff that we did, just to kind of recap a little bit. I really lucked out because I was able to find a guy in Ukraine that sold me a new transformer. I was able to find like the processor chip without too many problems on eBay, as well as like the switcher chips, as well as the CEM 3396. I got like a new firmware installed. I was able to, using the schematics, to kind of, you know, carefully like clean everything up. I righted this kind of weird thing that was like upside down, so this is like been fixed. From that, like I replaced all the buttons, so now it feels nice and responsive. I polished the keyboard, so now it's all like kind of really nice and shiny and feels very new. All right, we made it. Oh my God, like, I mean, we got it fully working. I mean, this is fantastic. I can't wait to start making music with this. It's an incredible keyboard. I mean, the Oberheim Matrix-6, there's really no words to describe how happy I am. It's been a long journey, but I think it was totally worth it. So thank you so much for sticking it out with me. Thank you for watching. And I will see you in the next video where we'll find out what the cat will drag in next.